Kailean Khongsai is an environmentalist by profession. He's been working for Arocha for over 10 years as community and reserve manager. He, along with his wife Kim, are Church Mission Society mission partners. Kailean has helped set up a community food growing project at Bixley Field Allotment in 2010. Kailean has been a pioneer in transforming a 3-acre wasteland into a beautiful multi-purpose green spot. He was also one of the founding committee members of Southall Transition. So Kailean, it's nice to speak to you today.
Thank you very much.
So could I begin by inviting you to tell us where you're from originally?
I am originally from Northeast India, a state called Manipur.
Manipur, yes. And can you tell me a bit about Manipur's environmental situation?
Thank you for asking me that question. I'll happily take it. Northeast India is probably one of the gorgeous regions in India, very rich in natural resources. It has a remarkable number of forest types which are considered as tropical rainforests and that support incredible diverse range of habitats and harboring abundance of flora and fauna. The region is now known as one of the world's 25th biodiversity hotspots, but sadly the area is witnessing a drastic decline in natural resources. I think that's largely due to population growth and a desire for an improved standard of living in that area. Coupling with that, there's a lack of sustainable planning, and the traditional practices in agriculture and forest use are still very common. All these have adverse effects on the nature environment as well as on the socio-economic sector. It is very sad that when nature disasters strike, the poorer sections of the communities are the hardest hit. As always, it's very sad. I'd like to explore the possibility of doing something there once this pandemic is over. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And can you share something of your passion for care of the environment? What really motivates you?
I believe that this is God's will, and I genuinely believe that this is God's will lovingly created and entrusted to our care. If you ask me what motivates me, it's the Bible, for I think Christians in particular should be motivated by Scripture. We ought to love and care for the earth because it is God's very good creation, as reflected in the book of Genesis, and because we are called to love and care for the most vulnerable people on the planet as a follower of Christ. But we have not done that very well. Our day-to-day choices and attitudes are often driven by our culture and lifestyle preferences, not according to the Bible. Yes, science is clear. Because of the human activity, we see effects like the species extinction and climate change. But as a Christian, it is not just because of that danger we face from pollution or climate change or other environmental problems. Although these are serious, for Christians, the issue is much deeper. If we genuinely believe God created this world and it belongs to Him, and we are a steward and trustees of God's creations, and I feel that promoting environmental stewardship in accordance with biblical principle is the need for every Christian today now. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've been involved in setting up a community food growing project at Bixley Fields.
Yes.
And have been a pioneer in transforming a 3-acre wasteland into a really beautiful multi-purpose green space. How do you start all these projects? How do you engage and involve the local community?
Well, when I first joined Russia, UK, back in 2009, my role was to build bridges among different faith communities in using environmental projects. Therefore, I was looking for a feasible environmental project that could fit well within this local community. So I met and interact with various community leaders, politicians, and faith leaders. But on many occasions, my questions on environmental topics has been diverted or ignored. I still remember one person saying climate change and conservation science are too complex for me. I would rather sit back and plant a tomato for my kitchen garden. That doesn't surprise me much, as the area is known to suffer from lack of environmental understanding and engagement, and the people find it really hard to relate to what I say. The only way to get people's attention and get them thinking about environmental issues was to talk about food. That is why I took up a food growing project. I know that most Asians and Caribbeans love food and spice. For me, talking about food and taking up food growing project became the key to open door for spreading environmental awareness and encourage people and mobilize the local resources. I'm glad to say that we have been very successful in terms of engaging with the local community. Many people met each other, they grow food together. Some of them went on to run the Around project, which is brilliant. I realized that from this experience that people are more drawn, connected, and relate to the things that they are familiar with and have already experienced. And sometimes it is often these simple things that everyone can do mobilizes and encourages people. It doesn't have to be unique, special, or spectacular things. From this simple food growing project, then came along the idea of having this bigger project. This is how we started our recent project, which is now called Woodfield Nature Reserve. We transformed 3-acre West derelict land into a beautiful multi-purpose green space now. The project is well received by the local community and actively used by local schools and community groups, colleges, and faith institutions. I am well pleased with this project. I thank God for that.
No, it's wonderful, really wonderful. So you think every human being should get involved in addressing this environmental crisis? Why do you think that?
As Pope Francis said, the earth is our common home. We live in one single planet. No single person, groups, or nations are immune to this global environmental crisis. We see that despite all our technological advancement, we are completely dependent on healthy, vibrant ecosystem for our food, water, clothes, fuels, energy, etc., etc. When we think about the future of humanity and the planet, there is a big question now. How long this planet can sustain us with these ever-growing populations and with our unlimited wants. We just don't know how our future, what our future will bring us. I think COVID-19 is a clear manifestation of our broken relationship with nature. It has highlighted the deep interconnections between nature, human health and well-being, and how unprecedented biodiversity loss threatens the health of both people and planet. I think this informs us clearly we all need a healthy planet to live and thrive. We all need to work hard towards that. Ed Brown, a writer and theologian, in one of his books, Our Father's World, share a hypothetical story, which I like it very much. He said, if you and I have found ourselves in a ship in the middle of the ocean, carrying lots of people, and the needs of the passengers are many, providing food, medical problem, entertaining them, and educating their kids, etc. And one morning, the chief engineer had bad news. It turns out that the ship got a leak and began to take on water. The situation is serious, and solving the problem will require cooperation from everyone. The bottom line is, if we don't solve the problem, we will sink. We are not going to make it to the port. Think about that situation. But whatever happened, life has to go on inside that sea. Even while the leak is being investigated or fixed, the food has to be served, medical needs to be met, and people need to be ministered or entertained, etc. But the problem with the ship has to be fixed, or nothing else will matter. I think this is how we need to view our current global environmental crisis. We need everyone's involvement. The problems we are facing is big and dangerous. We can't afford to ignore it. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Which brings me on to my next question. What is a net zero carbon target? And why is everyone talking about net zero emission targets all of a sudden?
Yes, net zero carbon. How can I put in a very simple term? Net zero refers to balancing the amount of emitted greenhouse gases with the equivalent emissions that are either offset or sequestered. The explosions of interest in net zero was driven by Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change special reports published in 2018. That report made it clear to the world's government the vital importance of net zero as an interim goal in response to the climate change. As a result, many governments around the world set their own targets, net zero goals. The UK government in 2019, if I'm not wrong, set net zero target as recommended by Committee on Climate Change. The target requires the UK to bring all greenhouse gases emissions to net zero by 2050. Compare with the previous target of at least 80% reduction from 1990 levels. It's going to be challenging. I just don't know how the government will deal with this. So people are pressurizing the governments, and so we hear lots about the net zero carbon right now.
Yes. So, I mean, looking, I suppose, to what people might do. These days, people talk about eco-villages and localism. What do you think about this matter?
I think this is a very interesting question, which I have been always reflecting about. I think for decades now, it has been obvious that the industrial affluence and consumer society is wholly unsustainable, and people now realizing the need for a shift in direction from global to local. And this will include the rebuilding of largely self-sufficient communities and regions. And I think localism and eco-village, these things has a same concept. And it's about the place. It is about living and producing locally as far as possible. And it is also about knowing and understanding our local area, community, and its potential. I think it is also about the community with the nature, with the skies about us and the soil under our feet that has been lost in our modern world. It is about mending those relationships together, I guess so. And it's important to rethink how we could move to more sustainable society for the good of all. I think it's very important concept.
And surely with more research and scientific finding, we should have at least a glimpse of hope for our future. Do you agree?
Both yes and no. Science have done amazing job by informing us the real problem and on what scale. However, scientific facts and figure have tended towards a narrative of threats and catastrophe, and often lack focus on realistic solution and have no real value that could motivate action. That's why one of American environmentalist, Paul Hawkins, said he's pessimistic looking at the scientific data, but optimistic when he looks at the people who are really working hard for a change. It's quite true. Science informs us about the fact Say, for example, in 2020, Global Living Planet Index shows an average of 68% fall in populations of mammals, bird, amphibian, reptiles, and fish between 1970 and 2016. And between 2015 and 2020, the rate of deforestation was estimated at 10 million hectares per year, which is quite a lot. I think if we are going to successfully respond to this environmental crisis, we have to learn how to live in community again. Think about how many of the responses to environmental problems have to do with community. Community garden, farmers market, car sharing, public transport system, etc. They all have to do with living together, sharing resources, working together, and living in harmony with our immediate environment. I think science have done a great job. We human beings need to be a bit smarter in translating that information to make a positive change.
Mm. And finally, do you believe this advanced modern technology can solve or manage our planet crisis?
Oh yes, technology can help, as I mentioned before, but looking at the complexity of the earth and its life system, it can never be fully or safely managed at 100%. I doubt it. What might be managed instead is us, human desire, our economy and communities. But our attentions are caught by those things that avoid hard choices implied by politics, morality, ethics, and common sense. I think it will make far better sense to resave ourselves to feed a finite planet rather than trying to attempt to save the whole planet to feed our infinite ones. Also, I believe that the root causes of global environmental problems are largely due to human selfishness, greed, apathy, and to deal with all these, we need a spiritual and cultural transformations which modern science can't do it. We live in uncertainty period, but rather than uncertainty directing us towards hopelessness and inactions, we can choose to give it the best of our ability by changing our perceptions and attitude. But right now, all we can do is to pray, trust in the Lord, and do what we can faithfully and serve the Lord, the Creator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kylie, and thank you for your commitment and your passion and your continuing energy. And we pray that your work will truly be blessed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.